Hello and welcome to episode 80 of the Victorian Studio podcast. My name is Maureen and I'm coming to you from my studio here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Welcome to everyone who is new and welcome back to previous viewers of the podcast. I know it's been a while. It's been a couple of months since I've podcast, but if you're a member on Ravelry, you'll know that both daughter and myself were very busy this summer, not only preparing for some sales, vending opportunities at an outdoor farmers markets, but also preparing for her wedding, which is coming up in less than 2 weeks. So it's been a very busy summer for us, and it shows in my crafting. I haven't got a lot of knitting to share with you today, but I do have some. So there'll be knitting, some sculpting, and some shop news at the end. So I hope you enjoy seeing all of that. I wanted to say thank you so much to Marlisha and Talia at Penhook and Needles podcast. They're always so very kind to promote other knit-alongs going along in Ravelry, and they continue to mention the Harry Potter cal that's continuing to go on in the Victorian Studio podcast group over on Ravelry. This is our second year. This current year started in January, goes right through to December 31st. And every month I try to give away prizes for the knit along, and if I don't do it during a podcast, I do it in posts over on Ravelry. So today I have 3 more prizes to give away. They're smaller prizes because next month will mark the 3/4 mark of the knit along for this year. So every quarter I like to award larger prizes. So we'll be doing that next month for all the entries to September 30th. But for today, I was drawing for everyone who has participated from post number 2 to post number 814. So that was from January 1st to August 31st. And so the 3 prizes I have to award today are a pattern and 2 progress keepers. So the first winner is the winner of a $10 Ravelry giftable pattern for $10 US or less, and the winner of that is post number 621, and that's Jody. Congratulations, Jody. Just choose a pattern that is giftable on Ravelry, PM me over there on your choice, and I will gift that to you. So thank you very much for participating. The second prize is for a chocolate frog progress keeper. Now I don't have these in my shop anymore because I don't want to sell licensed items, that refer to licensed items. So this chocolate frog I made up a while ago. It's made into a progress keeper with a little lobster clasp. And also there'll be a few other Harry Potter goodies in the package, like this Hogwarts pencil. And the winner of that is from post number 589, Renna. So congratulations, Renna. Send me your mailing address and I'll get that out to you. And the last prize for today is for a sorting hat progress keeper, and this is a charm that I found online that I made into a progress keeper stitch marker. There we go, turn it around so you can see it, in the shape of the sorting hat, of course, from Harry Potter. So that will come with a few other Harry Potter goodies, and the winner of that is from post 219, and that's Vonnie. Congratulations, Vonnie. So again, I probably have your address, but send it to me again just so I have it. I'll make sure it's correct, and I'll get your prize out to you as well. So thank you everyone for participating. Again, if you haven't won yet, no fear, there'll be another set of prizes at the end of every month until the end of the year. So as I said, the next set of prizes will include, I believe, some yarn. So keep those entries coming. Thank you so much for the participation. It's been wonderful to see all the great projects and ideas and everything related to either Harry Potter or dragons or wizards and witches. And it's a perfect time of year to get those Halloween projects included in the knit along and maybe get a chance to win a prize along the way. So that's been great to see all of that. Let's see. I guess I'll get to the knitting next. As I mentioned, I haven't been doing a lot of knitting because of everything else that have been taking a higher priority this summer. But I do have 3 projects right now to share with you. 2 are finished and 1 I'm still working on. The ones that I finished were given an impetus to get finished because of a new knit-along that I'll be participating in this fall with the O-Loops group over on Ravelry. Lydia, who is the dyer behind O-Loops Yarn, holds fall sessions for Harry Potter from October the 1st to December 31st. And this is the 6th year that she's been doing this. And this is the 3rd year that I've been participating in it. Previously, I've been in Gryffindor House, and I'm crossing my fingers that I will continue in Gryffindor. All that she requires to participate in this is that you purchase at least 1 skein of her Harry Potter themed yarn from her shop. And over the summer she had sales of different colorways that she had dyed up, and I did get 1 skein. I was good this year. I just got my requisite 1 because I still have quite a bit of yarn left over from previous years, and you know, I'll be able to use those in projects that she will have prompts for every month. So as we do these challenges, you get points for your house. And one of the things that they started this year was an incentive to get those works in progress off your needles. And I had 3 that I'd already started and have been sitting and languishing for quite a while. So I entered all these into that knit-along, and you had from, I think it was the end of August to the end of September. If you got them completed, you were able to get points for your house. So the first project that I entered into that were a pair of socks that I had started back in April for the Pinhook and Needles Autism Awareness Knit-Along. And for that knit-along, you just had to do something that was colorful. So I had quite a few balls of this Felici Rainbow Knit Picks yarn, and so I decided to make myself a pair of vanilla socks. But I never did get them finished. As I mentioned, I started them in April, and then they just sat, just half done. But I'm happy to say over the last few days I did get them completed. So here they are. They're 2 identical. I like to do them 2 at a time so that they do come out so that they are matching. And they're just vanilla socks with a 2x2 rib and Kitchenered heel. I also use Mina Phillips, the Knitting Expats, instructions for doing a German short row heel. So I got that pattern when I purchased some of her sock patterns on Ravelry. So yeah, that's great to have those finally off the needles. And I use my circulars, my Carbon circulars, the US 2.5 millimeter or 2.5 millimeter or US 1.5 size needles. Now those are emptied. I can, I'm sure, put on another pair of socks on those. I always like to have a pair of socks on the go. So speaking of socks, my next project that I finally got completed was a gift that I had started way back last December because I had intended on making these for hubby to give it to him for Christmas. But I just didn't give myself enough time, and Christmas being the busy time, it certainly wasn't the time to get these completed. So it was great having this incentive with the O-Loops knit-along coming up to finally get these complete. Now I don't have any of the yarn left. I literally used it all, but it was some Bear Cascade 220, and this is my own little ball band that I made up for my home dyed yarn. So I have dyed up my own colorways previously. I started way back a few years ago, and this one was actually one of the first ones I had done in March of 2016. I didn't even put a colorway on it or anything, but it was one of my first attempts at using my landscapes dyes to create my own colorways. So I thought the Cascade 220 would be good to make hubby's socks out of. I've made another pair of socks for him out of this, and they seem to wear well because he's a little harder on his socks than I am. There's no way I could make him a pair of socks out of something like Felici and not have him, you know, wear right through them right away. So Cascade 220 is great for him. So it's great to finally have these off the needles. And when I was making them again, I was going to do them 2 at a time, but I only had one set of Carbons size 4s. That's the 3.5 millimeter needles. So I started one and realized it was going to be really close. I thought I was going to run out of yarn, as a matter of fact. So I stopped that one, started the second one. I thought at first I would have to find some other Cascade yarn, like in black or gray or something, to do the toes. But what I did was I found a pair, well, I pulled out a pair of his socks, measured his foot on those, and found that I was able to tink back a few rows and finish off the toes with just, I probably had that much yarn left over, so I was able to finish his socks as well. So these are great. I'll be able to give him these this Christmas. So yay, it's September and I'm already got a Christmas gift done. So that was great. So yeah, I think he'll really like these. I've only made him one other pair of socks before, and they were again out of the Cascade 220, and he seems to really enjoy having those. So these will be great for winter time. And I do those with the larger needles and only 52 stitches. And again, they're just the vanilla socks with the German short row heel. So yeah, it was great to get both of those projects off the needles, and so that leaves me with only one. I have one other project that's been sitting out a long time, and I'm contemplating frogging that one. So I won't talk about that today. It's a vest that I was doing, but it's probably been over a year that I've been working on that. So the only other active project that I have on the needles is my Gryffindor Quidditch sweater. So I also included this in the O-Loops knit along for works in progress. I don't know if I'm going to get it done by the end of September, which is what we have to do in order to get points for our house. But I thought I would enter it into it anyway, and if I don't get it done, that's fine. At least those other 2 projects I was able to get house points for. But if you haven't been here before, I started this. Let's see, did I mark down when I started this? May 3rd, I started this sweater for the Harry Potter House Cup. And if I wanted to get it completed for points in that knit along, I would have had to finish it by the end of July. And there was no way with everything else going on this summer that I was going to get that done. So I resigned myself to the fact that I'll just take my time and do it. And then when the O-Loops group put up this prompt to get works in progress completed, I thought, okay, I'll put it in there. If I get it done, great. If I don't, that's fine too. So, so far I've just been working on the front of the sweater. And the pattern I'm using is the Quidditch sweater from this book called Charm Knits. It's a Harry Potter themed patterns for knitting by Alison Hansel. And yeah, this book is out of print right now, but it's very popular with knitters. It's got some great Harry Potter themed projects in it. So I've made the Weasley sweater before with this. So I thought I would do a Quidditch sweater, and in the spring I purchased some more Knit Picks yarn, and these are the Wool of the Andes yarns. This is the Golden Heather and Garnet Heather colorways. So I have plenty to get this sweater done with. And when I get it completed, I'm going to decide whether or not I'm going to add this. This is a crest that I got many years ago when I visited the Wizarding World of Harry Potter in Orlando. I got a few of these crests, so I may put that on the sweater when I'm done. That is movie accurate. They did have the crest on their sweaters. And so I'm revising Alison Hansel's pattern just a bit to make it more movie accurate, adding some striping on the bottom as it looks in the movies, and on the bottom of the sleeves as well. But right now I've just been working on the front of the sweater. I made it a little bit longer too than they call for. I like my sweaters long. So I've just completed this gold band for the front, and I'll start to do some arm shaping next, back in the burgundy color. So yeah, I've got this much done so far, and there's a front panel, the back panel is identical, and then the 2 sleeves, these 2 are knit flat. In her instructions, the sleeves are also knit flat, but I may do those in the round just to save time and having to seam up all of those as well. So yeah, this has been great to get back to. Now that it's the only project that I have on the needles, hopefully it'll go a little bit quicker. And yeah, if I do have the time, I'll try to get that done by the end of the month as well. So yeah, that's all the knitting that I have to share with you today. Something new that I discovered over the summer was a website called Twitch, and you may have heard of it before, you may not have. It's a platform where people can live stream. It was basically for gamers at first, but now there's a new section of people who are creative, who are live streaming on Twitch. And it's a great platform just to see people, either there's people play musical instruments, there's sculptors, there's painters, there's digital artists, all kinds of different creative types who have set up this live streaming a couple of times a week. Sometimes they go on for 4 hours or more, and it's basically them working on their projects with different camera settings. There'll be a couple of cameras, maybe one on their face so they can talk to their audience, and then a couple of cameras at different angles on their desktop showing what they're working on. I really enjoy a couple of them that are sculptors. There's one that's a polymer clay sculptor called Dragons and Beasties. It's by Becca in the US. There's another one by John Oldbury from the UK. He does movie props, and right now he's doing the Ice Dragon from Game of Thrones, but he's done other things like Guardians of the Galaxy, Groot and that kind of thing, or Jurassic Park or Jurassic World, dinosaurs. It's just been great to see all of these creative types sharing their process. And the benefit of live streaming, there are some live streamers on YouTube, but Twitch is just live streaming. And the great thing about it is you can interact with the person. So you just join in on the chat room, and so you can type in your communication to the person, and then they talk back to you live on their stream. If you miss their streams, because they are worldwide and they happen at all different hours of the day and night, they do get replayed for a little while, I think for a couple of weeks, that you can watch their previous live streams. So I've got a few favorites. I'll put my favorites down in the link in the description box below, and you can check them out if you're interested. What's been great, it's like podcasting where you can watch them and then do whatever you want while you're watching. If you're watching knitting podcasts, a lot of people knit while they're watching. For these sculpting ones, it really gives me the urge to do some sculpting myself. So that's what I did, especially when I first found Becca. She does these wonderful dragons. She's been sculpting them for 8 years, and so it's been a lot of fun to see. And she doesn't really do it as a tutorial. They don't do them as tutorials. They just craft, and then you watch and you can ask questions back and forth, but you can certainly talk about other things while they're live streaming as well. So it's very, very interesting. So just in watching her, even though it's not a tutorial, I was able to discover some new tips and techniques for doing my own sculpting. So I thought I would share with you a couple of the little items that I made over the last few months while watching Twitch. So the first one I did while watching Becca, and I thought I would try my hand in another dragon. I've already done one dragon. I don't know if you can see him back here. I did that many months ago, and I've already shared that on the podcast. But I thought I would do some little cutesy dragons. That one's more menacing type of design, and these ones are more like a cutesy type, which is similar to the ones that she does. So I wanted to try my hand at making one of these as well. So this was just made with white Sculpey clay, and then I decided to use both acrylic paints and pastels to color it up. And what was interesting about doing this is using the white Sculpey. First of all, it picks up every bit of dirt and dust. So what I learned from Becca was how to use a cleaning solution to clean off your clay and smooth it all out. So that was great to learn. But one of the things that was so frustrating about painting these up is using some dollar store acrylic paints that I had on hand. And I guess you get what you pay for. They aren't good quality. They were also old, but it was like painting with sand. So I was getting very frustrated that my nice smooth sculpt work was being ruined by this poor quality acrylic paint. So I went out that night all angry at myself for ruining my sculpture with this cheap paint, and got some Winsor & Newton acrylic paints. So they're much better quality, and you get what you pay for, obviously, which just goes to prove that you should use the best quality supplies that you can afford. You don't have to get professional quality paints or supplies, but it really did make a huge difference in using a better quality than the old dollar store, you know, the apple barrel paints, I think they were called. So yeah, the Winsor & Newton were a pleasure to use. So there's my first attempt at a little cutesy dragon, where I followed a similar design that Becca does on her little dragons. So besides doing that one, I then wanted to make something else the next time I watched her. I think it was the following week. I wanted to make something different than a dragon. And I don't know why I chose this, but I decided to make a lion. And maybe I was just thinking about Gryffindor or something like that, because there's a lion that's the representative of Gryffindor House. But I wanted to do a lion in yellow, orange, and red, and try my hand at making a gradient clay so that I could do his mane in these different colors to make it almost look like a fire, so like a fire lion. And so I got out my pasta maker that I got at Michael's as well, and many polymer clay artists use a pasta maker to create gradient polymer clays. You basically just run your clays, you line them up different colors, and then as you run them multiple times through the pasta maker, it gradually blends them all together into a nice smooth gradient. So that was a neat technique to learn, and I made up this little dragon. This little lion. Now, when I first started him, I didn't realize that a few days later was International, I think it was like a International Day of the Lion or something. And so I thought, oh great, that's a perfect time to get him all finished up. So that's what I did. So I finished him up for that day. I posted this on Instagram, but yeah, it was great to sculpt this and do all of his mane in these little snakes of gradient polymer clay. So that was my second attempt at little sculptures out of polymer clay. So I also finished off his face with a little bit of the acrylic paint, and all of the sculptures that I'm making here are all sealed with Varathane as well. So that was my second one. And then watching Becca again, and also John, I decided I wanted to make a black and white little dragon. So this was my second cutesy dragon in that design. So the black is Primo clay, and then the white is actually translucent white, and that's in Fimo. And I'm really pleased with the way that turned out. and his little horns and that are twisted up black and white clays as well. And I'll have pictures at the end so you can see these better. I know it's always hard to see them on the video. But yeah, that's my second little dragon that I did. And then over the last week or so, I did my third little dragon. This time I decided to do a little sleepy dragon. And this one I used the colored clays instead of using just a white clay and painting. I decided to use purple and blue to make this little sleepy dragon. And again, I'll have pictures as I was making this up to see the process. So he's got little wings on the back and quite a few horns and scales. So yeah, that was a lot of fun to create all of these and kind of do other sculpting besides just the small charms that I've been making for a very long time. It was great to do something a little bigger than all these little tiny little charms. But speaking of smaller charms, of course, over the summer I did make some new inventory, both for the Etsy shop and for the farmer's market. And what I thought I would do as a test during the farmer's market was not only provide just the single charms on the lobster clasps so that people can, hang them either from knitting, like project markers or stitch markers. I wanted to be able to kind of expand their usage and see how that went at this market, and then maybe I will add them to my shop. I haven't added them yet as other items. Most of these are added as single charms right now, but I will see if there's a desire for people to have these other items. I may add them to the shop. I also am holding some back for the fall, the Christmas craft fair that we're going to be doing in November, but I thought I'd share them with you today and get some feedback and see what you think about them. So the first charm that I created a few months back, I was contacted by someone on Etsy asking me to recreate a cake that she had created. I think it's called a croustillant. It's probably the wrong pronunciation of it, but it's basically a chocolate cake in the shape of a rectangle with a crunchy cookie bottom and then shards of peanut brittle stuck on the top, and there's also a little bit of icing on the top. So it really looked decadent. She sent me an image, and so I created quite a few of these because, I like creating a whole bunch at a time since I already have the pieces and the clays out and that kind of thing. It's much easier to do a whole bunch at a time. So I created quite a few of these, and they have been added to the shop just as individual charms, and they come with the antique brass, silver or gold tone lobster clasps. So these are very tiny. They'll be very hard for you to see, but they are a little tiny cake with the cookie bottom, the chocolate on top, and then these shards of clay that makes it look like peanut brittle on top. So these were great fun to create. So again, those are in the shop, and I have a fair amount of those. The next ones I have are some pretzels. Now I made these for Lisa at Fibernymph Dyeworks, and we did a collaboration for her Happy Hour yarn club. So she was making yarn colorways in the inspired by adult drinks, and one of them was different beers, and so I thought, okay, a beer and pretzels would go good together. So I made a whole bunch of pretzels, and these are in the shop now. I wanted to wait 6 months after I provided Lisa with enough for her yarn club, so they had that exclusivity for 6 months before I offered them in the shop. But they are now in my shop. So again, I know it's very hard to see, but this little pretzel is made of polymer clay, and then it's got some little pieces of salt on them, and then the lobster clasp as well. So these are made with the polymer clay. They're colored with soft pastels and then varathaned for protection. So I've got those up in the shop as well. And then the next ones I wanted to share were another new item that I have, some hot chocolate. I sent away to Taiwan for some coffee mugs, ceramic coffee mugs. So I thought I would make, instead of just coffee, I thought I would do some hot chocolate. So these would be great for winter time. But they're little ceramic mugs. And then I added the hot chocolate inside with some fake whipped cream and chocolate pieces on there. So that's another new item that again is in the shop. And let's see, next. Oh, these next ones are some items that took a fair amount of time to make, but I'm really pleased on how they turned out. And these are some goldfish bowls. I have more than this, I just have these in here right now. These are made using real glass bowls. They're little balls with holes on top, and then they come with either gold or silver toned caps that you seal on them. So my idea was to make, at first I was just going to make some little terrariums out of these. So I started with using some very small white gravel at the bottom, and I used some UV epoxy. Now regular epoxy comes in two parts, and you have to measure it out very carefully, and then it has to sit and cure for about 24 hours until it gets hard. What's great about using UV epoxy is you use a little UV flashlight, or you can put it out in the sunlight, and it cures in minutes. So that was great to use for this project because I was able to layer it using different curing times for the epoxy to get the effect that I wanted. I first laid down the gravel, and then I was going to make just a terrarium. So I had made a whole bunch of small little succulent plants out of polymer clay, different colors. There's like a pink, blue, greens, and yellows in plants that I baked in my little toaster oven first to harden them, and then inserted those into the gravel. Used a little bit of the UV epoxy to set them so they would stand up, and then added the rest. When I decided then to make them into little goldfish bowls, instead I wanted to add the goldfish and the rest of the epoxy for the water. So I made little tiny goldfish, and they had to be small enough to get through a really tiny hole at the top of these glass balls, which was very, very difficult to do, you know, with their fins and everything. But I made the goldfish out of the polymer clay and baked them, and then added them with the UV epoxy to make it look like they were swimming in their own little goldfish bowls. So yeah, I'm very pleased on how those turned out. So yeah, so those are also in my shop as well. And the last thing that I wanted to show you, that I sculpted at least, was something that took me quite a long time to do. Again, I made a whole bunch at a time because it would have been easier to do that rather than making just a few. But it was pretty labor intensive, and that was making some green and red grapes. I wanted to make wine charms for sale at the farmer's market. And wine charms, if you're not familiar with that term, are little charms that are on these little round hoops. They're almost like earrings, and they go on the base of your wine glass so that you can tell which glass is yours. So what I did was I made one red and one green for every set of wine charms that I was doing, and they come in either the silver or the gold rings. And that way, if you're having a drink with your significant other, you can tell whose glass is whose by which wine charm is on your glass. So I got these wine glass charm rings from a supplier here in Canada. So they come in either the silver or the gold. And as I said, they come apart quite easily. They're just like a regular hoop earring that can easily be put over your glass stem. So I made a few sets of these, and they really got a good reception at the farmer's market. And that was great because it literally took me 5 days from start to finish to make those charms, because it is very labor intensive to make all those little balls of polymer clay, attach them all together and make them into the bunches of grapes. And just to show you, here's a sped up version of how I created at least part of the process of making bunches of grapes into charms. So yeah, it was quite intensive, but it was great to do it while I was watching podcasts or Twitch. I could make those up. But one of the nice things I like about making these, about making grapes, is you use translucent clay to make them look a lot more realistic. And I made each of the red and green grapes in 3 different shades to give them a little more realistic look. And they also, of course, have a little stem and leaf on them. So yeah, I'm pleased on how those turned out. But again, that was a lot of work to do. So it's nice to see that's a successful project that I was able to do. So let's see. Oh, the other things that I created for the farmers market, besides just having charms for knitters and crocheters, I knew that at the farmers market there probably wouldn't be a lot of people who knit and crochet, so I wanted to offer the charms and show them in different usage. So you can either put them on a chain for jewelry. We were wearing some around our necks as necklaces. We hung them off our aprons for zipper pulls, those kind of things. So it was great to use them in other ways. But some of the popular items that we sold were bookmarks, tea infusers, and hairpins. So I thought I would show you how I did those. The bookmarks were popular, especially with the kids. They came in either silver tone or gold tone. And so these metal bookmarks I added these chains to, and then I just added my charms onto them after. So they come in a variety of different items. So anybody that wanted to have a bookmark in any of my charms, I was able to, right at the table, create them right up for them. So these bookmarks are great. They slide in between the pages of a book really easily, and then the charm just is displayed down the back of the book. So had all different kinds. The rubber ducks were very popular, as were the antique books. And the gold books with the brown were also accompanied by ones on silver that were black books. So I have now in the shop the same kind of books, but in black and silver as charms as well. So yeah, those were received very well. The tea infusers, if you aren't a tea drinker or don't use loose tea, you may not know what a tea infuser is. It's basically this little mesh ball that unhinges, and you can put loose tea in to steep. So I had large ones for pots of tea, and then just some of my charms on the end of that, or smaller ones for teacups. And what I did was I just put a little hook on those so that it would sit on the edge of a teacup without falling in. And they had the smaller tea infusers. So those were great to offer as well. And let's see, the last things were hairpins. And I was able to find some hairpins that had bases on them that you could attach other items to. So I thought I would try doing some with some of the bakery items. So the girls like these, little chocolate chip cookies or donuts. The kids love donuts. All kinds of, either the chocolate donuts, strawberry, or the sugar donuts. So these came in a variety of hairpins in gold, silver, copper, or brass toned pins. So yeah, it was good to be able to experiment with putting my charms on other items. So I still have stock left, so I don't have to work so hard getting prepared for this Christmas craft sale come November. It was so much work to get the first one, prepared for the first farmers market, because we designed all of our own table displays, the banner, I sewed up the aprons and the table skirt and all of that. My daughter does woodwork, so she made the wood displays for displaying the items. I'll throw a picture in here of what our table looked like, and you can see, get an idea of that. So yeah, it was a lot of work to get ready for the first craft sale, but at least now we have a lot of those things done. It'll be a lot easier to prepare for future ones. So really looking forward to participating in the Christmas one come November. So the last thing I wanted to mention was, speaking of my Etsy shop, I've also been revamping my website. I've been doing a lot of work at work revamping our whole cardiac sciences website, and it got me thinking that I really should update my own victorianstudio.com so that it's more legible on mobile devices and that kind of thing. And eventually what I want to do is expand it to have an e-commerce site right on my own website, so I can sell off of Etsy as well. I'll keep my Etsy shop, I'm sure, at least for the short term, but eventually I'd love to see all of my sales on my own website. I know I did apply for, I mentioned before, Handmade at Amazon, but I haven't set that up yet. I've just been too busy. But again, they take a portion of your sales, as does Etsy. There are fees. So it'd be great if I could get my own website set up to sell directly from there. I'd be able to charge less for my items because I wouldn't have those overhead costs. So over the weekend, through YouTube videos and working at home for my own website, I was able to at least get started on a revamp. So if you're interested in seeing what I've done, just head over to victorianstudio.com and you'll see a new homepage, about page, and frequently asked questions. And right now the shop page links to the Etsy site, but when I get my own e-commerce page set up, I will also have a link to that so that you can have your choice of either shopping via Etsy or right on my own site. So that's something I'm going to be working on, I'm sure, over the next few weeks, especially after the wedding. I'll have a lot more time to concentrate on that. But it's been great. I love doing website work and coding and that kind of thing. So it's been great fun to do that. As a reminder, on Etsy right now, I have a promotion going on. If you're interested in any of the items that I have or any of these items I've shown today that aren't yet on the site, let me know, because if you spend over $50 or more Canadian, and that's about $38 US, there's free shipping worldwide. So if you wanted to take advantage of that promotion, that's currently running over on my Etsy shop. So I think that's all I have to share with you today. Hopefully it won't be another 2 months before I record again, but I do appreciate you coming back if you've been here before, or visiting for the first time if you are new. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I had to share today, not only knitting, but some of my other crafting as well. So until I record again, take care everyone. Have a wonderful end of summer. Early fall. My favorite time of year is fall time. And I'll see you again on the next episode of the Victorian Studio podcast. So until then, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.